Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochar. Agriculture is not exactly a romantic subject. It's more of a practical working knowledge. For generations, India, that is Bharat, has been a home to various agricultural practices. We have sharpened our technology, we have sharpened the productivity, and of course, we have made things better than it was before. But still, there is a long way to go. There is still a lot of catching up to do, or rather, we need to rewind ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have with me somebody who can take us through that route. Dr. K Anil Kumar, who is a scientist, author, and of course, a passionate advocate for sustainable agriculture. In fact, as you see in this conversation as we go ahead, when it start coming to the subject, Dr. Anil Kumar really gets more passionate as we go along. Co-author of a groundbreaking book called Krishi, The Rooted Wisdom, which I have a copy with me here, and we'll be speaking more about this book as we go along, is a fact that we need to go back into the conventional wisdom of the yesteryears and understand how we got it right then and why are we getting it wrong now. In fact, the harmony between ancient Indian farming and of course the modern practices is something that we need to do a deep dive on. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me with you.
Thank you, sir. So the main point I want to start with you is, of course, the question obvious would be why did you write this book? But before we get into that, a bit of a background about yourself, if you can speak the route which you came through in your professional career, sir.
Yeah. So by training, I've been an organic chemist. And as we know, chemistry is an application science, so it can be applied to life sciences, it can be applied to material sciences. So I started off as an academic in Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, then moved to Dr. Reddy's in the pharma world. From there I moved to Tata Chemicals, where we were looking at materials, agri, nutraceuticals, healthcare, prebiotics, a wide range of innovation platforms were there, which I was fortunate to be part of. And that the interaction with the Rally's team and the research in crop protection and crop nutrition that we did then really triggered me to look at agri in a much more serious way. And as my journey proceeded, I also then took charge of the R&D of Nagarjuna Fertilizers, which later on became the Fertis India Private Limited. So my journey continued, and my passion for healthcare and agri together kept on growing. And I realized agri is a very integral back-end component of healthcare. Health requires nutrition. Nutrition is the ground on which a healthy individual can be built. Health sans nutrition, there's no health at all, right? And nutrition comes from food, and food comes from agri. So in that sense, agri is an integral component of the healthcare solution itself. And preventive healthcare was my passion.
Okay.
So that's where I started looking at agri, and then as I kept going more deeper into the present day agri practices, I realized one side we have really, as you rightly said, we have achieved a lot. We have journeyed through so many years, and green revolution, we have really achieved a lot. But also it has led to a lot of ecological damage. And another very disturbing thing for me was that India is presently dependent on the rest of the world for its food.
Okay.
Which is really very disheartening.
So that
for a country like ours.
Yeah, in
right?
fact, you're very passionate about when you speak about that. The first thing that comes into the mind, of course, is the way you take Indian agriculture back and look at what happened in the yesteryears, what happened in the past, and how we got it right then, how we fed huge populations.
Yeah.
And what is now, or what is going wrong right now, which we need to correct. So can you take us through that route which you took initially in terms of understanding the ancient Indian agricultural practices?
Yeah. So let me just complete this part on,
Oh, surely, sir. Please go.
On why is it that we need to look at the ancient Indian agricultural practices before we go into what they were. The reason is being that India was self-sufficient, and India was feeding its men and cattle,
Okay.
right, and animals. So the question was India, was Bharat, the old Bharat, ancient Bharat, was it really populous? Was it having a huge population, or is it that India's population is really very large right now? So this question I wanted an answer. Went into Mahabharata,
Okay.
various texts of course, and Mahabharata gave me an answer. And we know now very well that Mahabharata, Ramayana, these are itihasas and they are not mythology, right? That means they are real texts, history texts.
Okay.
They have actually recorded what has happened, right? So therefore Mahabharata is a very good text
Yes.
for us to refer to
To start.
to understand the population at that time, right? So lot of back-end calculations and interesting way of arriving at population has been done, which is captured in the book. I will not go into all those details, but suffice to say that the population of Bharat during Mahabharata time was 4.33 billion plus.
And we're talking of an Indian population today, which is
1.4 billion. So it's 3.5 times the present population.
So it means our population has actually come down.
Yes. And added to this, the fascinating part is that they had lakhs of elephants, lakhs of horses, and lakhs of cattle.
Okay.
They were taking care of all of those animals, right? They were taking care of all the humans. All of them were being fed.
15
without-
lakh, 15 lakh elephants.
Yeah, close to 15 lakh elephants, or maybe even more, right?
So-
This is what is recorded in close to, I'll tell you the elephant number, about 5.43 lakh elephants went to Mahabharata war.
Oh,
For every elephant that has gone to war, there will be at least another
backup.
right? So close to 10 plus lakh elephants were there during Mahabharata time as a part of the warfare.
And then there were horses and rest of the stuff.
Horses are really huge number. 27 lakh horses went to war.
And this,
Right.
because when you talk of Mahabharata, it is not a mythical text. It
It's
is
not.
something that happened.
Yes.
There is a Kurukshetra.
And there is a cross reference to what I am saying.
Yes, sir.
4.33, I arrived using all these Akshohinis and then back calculating the population. Even Yudhishthira tells the number of people who have lost their lives in Mahabharata war to Dhritarashtra after the war, because Dhritarashtra asks him first question, how many have lost their lives? And the number is really stunning. He says it's 1.66 billion. That's where a Western historian says the square feet of land, which is the most bloodiest in this whole earth, is Kurukshetra. Every square feet is filled with so much blood. Because 1.66 billion people lost their lives in that location, in that region. That was the kind of war that is the reason why it's called Mahabharata war.
Mahabharata.
Right? It's really a Mahabharata war in that sense. So there's a corroboration within the same text of the population that has been mentioned and how many have lost lives. There's a correlation. So there is every reason for us to believe that that was the population during Mahabharata.
How did they feed so many people?
So that's where was the next question. So, and India was not importing any of the three basic crop nutrients that we talk of right now, the N, P and K, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Right now we are importing all three of them. We import natural gas for making nitrogen, that is urea. We import DAP as mines. We import MOP, muriate of potash, we say, for the sake of potassium. That means what? India is right now dependent on the rest of the world for our food, right?
Okay.
And we weren't importing any of these three during our ancient Bharat time.
What did you manage?
How did we manage then?
That's a question.
That's a question,
It's an
right?
interesting question.
Very interesting question. And therefore, we have missed some very important salient features of ancient Indian practices, obviously. We call it organic. Present day, unfortunately, chemical-free farming we are thinking is organic.
It's not.
It's not. Because chemical-free farming is not giving us the results that we are looking at, right? whereas their farming methods gave the results which could feed so many. And that is the reason why in all our ancient texts, India was called Annapurna. If you remember, every reference, be it whatever language, the ancient texts, if you pick, they will say Bharat was Annapurna. That means it had excess food after having fed these many mouths, right? So how was it actually managing? It's really fascinating, and therefore it is very, very necessary, pertinent for us to do a deep dive, understand what they have done, what have we missed out over the time. And that is the reason why we spent 2 to 2.5 years doing this deep dive.
In fact, in the Krishi rooted wisdom of the book which you have written, a lot of the first chapter itself starts with Mahabharata and it gets on to that. But more importantly is the fact that the ancient knowledge that we have, the wisdom we have, can actually be brought back into today's farming.
Yes.
If the policymakers, if the farmers, if the support industries all get together, then we can bring back that particular, because somewhere along the way people felt that organic farming is not viable. Do you concur with the view?
No, certainly not.
Yes, sir.
Not after having done this deep study. Organic farming is commercially viable, provided they integrate. We found 3 basic, we call it as 3 pillars of ancient Indian agricultural practices. I have in fact given them names in such a way. One is diversity, other one is integrated farming, and the last one is law of empathy. It comes down to DIL, D-I-L.
Okay.
So they did their farming with DIL.
Okay.
Right?
From the heart.
From the heart.
Yes.
And that is why they were successful in that sense. So it's easy to remember: diversity, integrated farming, and law of empathy. These are the 3 major differences which we have lost out over time in our agricultural practices, which have to be brought back and integrated to present day organic. It will then become commercially viable, not just viable, I will say commercially viable. Right? Means we can produce, farmer can produce more than what he requires for doing even exports.
Okay.
That kind of yields are possible, provided we integrate these 3 pillars.
Somewhere in the book you also mentioned the fact that in the nature itself there's a way of tackling insects, for example.
Yeah.
There's a way of tackling to ensure that the predators are also there, the insects are also there, so that you really didn't have to use a fertilizer, which is today highly misused in the Indian agriculture system, resulting in a lot of diseases for people, cancer and other things. So how do you think we can bring back that, sir?
The diversity, the first pillar that I was talking about. In fact, what fascinated me after having gone through this whole journey was how beautifully our Indians, our Bharatiyas, have integrated their fundamental philosophy of unity and diversity into agri. Agri was an expression of their understanding of nature.
Okay.
And what's our understanding of nature? That Ishavashyamidagam sarvam yat kinchat jagatyam jagat. That the whole universe is filled, even the smallest component of this universe is filled with, they say, divine force, right? So there's an underlying current of the one single divine force connecting all of us, right? This is what quantum physics, quantum mechanics talks about, which is quantum entanglement. Bell's theorem talks about interconnectedness, right? Then, so in fact, the whole Ilya Prigogine, I mentioned that he was a Nobel laureate, chemistry Nobel laureate, who talked about chaotic systems. Our natural systems are all chaotic because they are interconnected, they have feedback loops. One's action interferes or affects the action of another person.
Okay.
Which is what is quantum world all about. Actually, it happens even at a real world. So this our ancients understood, because there's an underlying unity connecting everyone and everything in this universe. And therefore, that unity gives rise to a diversity. Because we call Maya, as another name is Shatarupi. Shatarupi means myriad, million forms.
Infinite?
Infinite forms.
Okay.
So diversity is life. Nature always supports diversity. I can give you a few examples if you want.
Sure, sir.
The more diverse a forest is, the more resilient the forest is. Is it not?
So don't have a single crop or a single type of tree.
Say you go to Western Ghats, the biodiversity is high, and Western Ghats are resilient, right? They don't get destroyed, right? Say, okay, take another example of our gut microbiome. The more diverse our microbiome is, the more healthier we are.
Okay.
When we lose the diversity of gut microbiome, we get into disease state, right? So diversity leads to life. One supports another. This is what was carried forward into farming beautifully. What you were mentioning about this insects being controlled. Every pest has a predator. See, in nature, it's a cycle. There is especially in the insect world, in the reptile world, one is consumed by another.
A rat and a snake.
A small fish by a big fish, and so on. So every insect has a predator, right? And a predator has its own host plant. Insect has its own plant it wants to attack, right? So the crop, which is the main crop, has a pest. It should be intercropped with another crop which is the host plant for the predator of this pest.
Okay.
That is how they plant. See the intelligence of the selection of the intercropping, right? So the diversity helped in ensuring that there's a natural control of the pest. You don't need to spray any crop protecting agent. No pesticide is needed. The predator will eat up the pest, right? And natural control occurs. So there's a absolute, means the farmer doesn't need to do anything. Even this host intercrop also gives a yield. Even this crop also gives yield. He is getting benefit out of both of them. He is allowing the insects to take care of themselves. He is not interfering with them, right?
Yes.
So see, and his life is happy. He is getting the yield. Even if one crop gets due to some climatic conditions, the yield is really low, the other crop makes up, right? So the diversity, which is nothing but polyculture, not the monoculture, which Britishers came and actually messed up with our agriculture, they brought in this concept of monoculture. Acres and acres of paddy field, acres and acres of wheat, right? Tea plantations, coffee plantations, indigo, all this, they deliberately cotton, they moved our farmer away from this intelligence of using multi-crops, right? Or polyculture. That's another word that I use to tell that instead of having a single crop for running 2 acres, you crop that, you put that along with another row of another crop. Like very often legumes are put along with the cereals.
Okay.
Right? That is mentioned in our ancient texts. Legumes are put along with cereals. In fact, all this has been given in simple chamakam that we read in Shiva Puja every day. Vrihayas-chame, Yava-as-chame, Masha-as-chame, Tila-as-chame, Mudga-as-chame, Khalwa-as-chame, Godhuma-as-chame, Masura-as-chame. So which one should go with what has been mentioned.
Okay, in our ancient text itself.
Right? So, and the combinations, when we went into the science behind it, it was fascinating.
Okay.
I was really surprised. How did they really understand this much science?
Those days.
Right? So it's really absolutely fascinating.
But somewhere along the way, we killed our insects. In fact, we do it today. And actually, has that upset the entire ecosystem?
Completely. See, the crop protection agents, which we call as insecticides or pesticides, they eradicate the pest and not kill the pest. There's a difference, right? If you only kill the pest, you are still leaving some population of the pest to remain, right? Eradication means you are removing even the last trace of the pest. What happens because of that for the ecosystem? Insects are an integral component of nitrogen cycle.
Okay.
Integral component. And therefore, if insects are completely removed from our natural system, the nitrogen cycle gets affected, soil fertility gets affected because of that. And because of that, the crops also cannot grow in a healthy manner because fertility is getting affected, right? So on the other hand, if we allow the insects to remain, some part of the insects to remain, one thing is they are taking care of the nitrogen cycle. Second thing is they give slight amount of stress to the plant.
That's very interesting because somewhere along the way you mentioned that plants need to have stress so that they can produce better fruit, better tasting fruit.
Yeah,
Is it true?
very true.
Okay.
The analogy I'll give you is a individual brought up with no stress in his childhood versus a individual who is brought up with some manageable stress in his childhood. Who would function better in his life?
Obviously, the second one.
Second,
The latter
right?
one.
All of us know this. This is what is the case even with plants. If we do complete protection for the plants, then the yield may be high, but the fruit that comes does not have stress fighting molecules, because plant has no need to produce stress fighting molecules.
We imbibe that same thing?
Yeah, we exactly. And stress fighting molecules that the plant produces are stress fighting molecules for us too.
Okay.
This is called as xenohormesis. We'll go into that some other time when the time permits. But it's a very well established scientific fact that we eat, or other way, I'll give you another simple example. Pick a guava which is grown under controlled conditions and a guava that is growing from a tree which is growing in the wild. You will see that the guava is far more tastier, sweeter from the wild plant.
One.
Right? Even the taste is better, nutrition is better.
The other ones are too huge and too
They
big.
look huge, absolutely no taste, no nutrition. It's all pulp. What are we eating? We are eating pulp. Right?
Nothing beyond that.
Nothing beyond that. So therefore, continuing in this way, the way we are right now doing farming, I don't think is the right way for us to be healthy, for the ecological system to be healthy, and going forward for the country to become independent.
The law of empathy is something that you keep talking of.
Yeah.
If you can just elaborate on that a bit.
See, empathy and integrated farming, I feel actually there is this is a voice that has to be heard by policymakers especially. The reason being, integrated farming, we saw this across so many texts in ancient Indian literature, that the dairy was always integrated with a farm.
Okay.
Every farmer had a cattle. If he didn't have, the king used to give him a cattle.
Okay.
Right? So the reason is, the farm is the main industry, dairy is an allied industry. Right? The output of the allied industry gets into the main industry, and the output of the main industry, the waste of the main industry goes into the allied industry.
Correct.
So it's a circular economy. Right? And because of this association of allied industry, poultry for another example, sericulture, all this were situated right next to the farm. So the farmer, and this will happen only in small farms. A small farm can have the dairy interacting with the field. See, if it is situated far away, the cow will never have interaction with the crop that is there, right?
That's true.
The hen will never have interaction with the crop. That hens and the chickens go and eat up few insects. So they also do insect control, right? So they have to be situated right next to each other. This concept of corporate farming hundreds of acres, taking over hundreds of acres and farming, should be discouraged by the government.
That's exactly one of the points you keep stressing on, is that this corporate farming is actually killing.
Yes, it is
the entire
killing
Indian agriculture system.
not only Indian agricultural system, ecological system too.
Okay.
Completely destroying our ecosystem.
Why, sir? I thought when you have bigger farms, the financial support the farmers get from the company, for example, the big supermarkets, is enormous. The farmer need not worry, because all through the year he gets or she gets a regulated income. But is there something else beyond that?
Yeah, so this is all short term. If you really see, all that you have told right now are the benefits that the farmer gets. It's a short term benefit. But how is the farming done? When you take 100 acres, the farming is done through the crop protection, crop nutrition. You put huge amount of fertilizers, huge amount of crop protection agents, that means pesticides, insecticides, fungicides and so on, right? And what happens, outcome of that? The soil is destroyed, ecological system is destroyed. So after few years, 10 years of this kind of farming, that area becomes redundant, the corporate moves to another area, this farmer is left high and dry. So what have you achieved? 10 years you have given him income. After that? Nothing. You have destroyed him, in fact, right? On the other hand, if government supports the farmer to maintain their small farm, In fact, gives them cattle like earlier kings used to give the cattle, right? Gives them cattle, helps them to have a dairy and a poultry. We are actually creating a long-term benefit. Ecological system is not going to get destroyed. His farm output will be far better, and even if farm gets destroyed, he has a second income through a dairy.
It's like an insurance.
Yeah, it's like an insurance. So there won't be any farmer suicides, because second income is always there.
Okay, so you can fall back on that.
Yes, even multi-cropping for that matter leads to the same situation for a farmer. Farmer situation is not binary any longer if he moves from monoculture to polyculture. The reason is, if one crop gets hit, he still has an outcome from another crop, a revenue flow from a second crop. So having more than one crop in a field at any given point of time is always beneficial, and the selection is actually given in our ancient texts. They say a pomegranate grown next to a guava gives you better guava as well as better pomegranate. Wow. And you know what the science behind it is fascinating. The mycorrhiza, this is below the soil. I don't know how they understood it at that point of time. The mycorrhiza means the fungus that grows at the roots of the plants. The mycorrhiza of pomegranate plant and the mycorrhiza of guava plant are symbiotic. They help each other.
Oh.
I don't know how they captured this knowledge, and therefore growing both of them together next to each other, they help each other. They will get better nutrition out of the soil. They will pull out better nutrition. Both of them will give better yields, more healthier yields.
So in fact, one of the places you also mentioned,
the way they,
one of the places you mentioned also about perfume plants, kind of repelling insects also.
Yeah.
How does that work, sir?
This is another way. See, like one approach was that push-pull that we were talking about, the predator and the pest, right? The other way is not to allow the pest to come at all. How do you do? Not by spraying some pesticide, but instead they understood that pest selects a plant based on chemical signals that the plant releases. We call them as essential oils or perfumes or anything that gives a slight smell sort of a thing, right? So if we put another set of plants next to it, which produce more of these small molecules, right, volatile components, they will interfere. Like for example, a marigold or a jasmine intercrop with the main crop.
Okay.
What happens? The pest, because the insects do not, they don't identify a plant through their eyes. They identify through their antenna, which detects the chemical signals. So as they are coming, they will see these other flowering plants produce more of the volatile compounds. They will smell that, which will interfere with the chemicals that are produced by the main crop. So what happens? They will get confused and they will not be able to identify the main crop.
So you also
see the intelligence. So beautiful. All that we need to do is have a flowering plant next to it, and flowering plant will take care of this is a pest repellent, natural pest repellent. So the pest can't identify the main crop. So again here, the second flowering also, the flowers also can be sold. So that's also a crop.
Correct.
Right? So
actually the chaos theory and the Bell's theorem is something again in the farming book actually. And if you can explain to our viewers what exactly and how exactly does that work?
See, actually the Bell's theorem is a fascinating thing. Bell, in fact, it's David Bohm was the scientist who had, in fact, used to have a lot of conversation with Einstein. They were contemporaries, right? And he came up with a theory that there is communication which is faster than the speed of light.
Okay.
And according to Einstein, speed of light is absolute. Right? There is nothing faster in this universe
than speed
of the light. Bohm said no, that's wrong. So they used to have a lot of arguments and discussions, and this is called as EPR paradox classically in quantum physics. So he proposed a theorem, he called it as Bell's theorem, where mathematically he proved that there is possibility of communication beyond the speed of light between any two subatomic particles.
Okay.
Which later in 1984 by a scientist by name Aspect It got proven in France in a colloider.
Oh, I remember that. Circular one.
Circular one, right? So it's called as aspect experiment.
CERN collider? So was it
CRN collider, right?
Yes, sir.
So there he proved, that's why it's called as aspect experiment.
Okay.
He proved Bell's theorem to be true. Experimental proof, till then it was a theorem and a hypothesis. He proved it is true, and he proved that two subatomic particles communicate beyond the speed of light.
Okay.
Beyond the speed, that means instantaneously. So what does it mean? It means what looks as two different separate entities are not two different separate entities. They are one and the same, right? That is where Bell's theorem talks about interconnectedness.
True, sir.
So therefore, the whole universe is interconnected. Means we are thinking, we are doing farming, we are killing an insect, we aren't getting affected by it. Sorry. We are getting affected by it. We will get affected by it. The reason is we are interconnected. Quantum, the whole universe is, that is the reason why we need to understand that quantum world is not only a subatomic reality. It's a reality in our real-time world too. And this is what our ancients realized. That we are all interconnected. The whole ecology, we are a component of this nature. We are not separate from nature. We are also a component of this nature.
So as we close the conversation, Dr. Anil, one of the points that I want to bring forth is that we have this theory, we have a practical aspect of it. We've seen how it worked in the earlier ages. We are trying to bring it back. The Britishers came, of course, as you said, they destroyed the entire thing because they wanted to take everything to England.
Yeah.
And they had a selfish motive in that. Now, as we do the course corrections, and as you said, the policy makers need to listen to all this. The point I'm trying to make is, did we make mistakes? Yes.
Yes.
And how to correct it?
Yes.
How do we do that?
All we require is just a will to do the correction. Because these corrections are, they don't require any great financial requirement. It's just the will to move back to our roots. That's why we call it as rooted wisdom.
Okay.
The will to go back to our roots and
go back, rewind yourself.
Rewind yourself and pick that knowledge and use it.
A lot of it is used in Indian Ayurveda, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
But the way you've written your book and where you've gone through it and tremendous amount of research in it, the point I'm trying to ask now is, has it made you also look at a different way of consuming food?
Yes, certainly.
How is it, sir? I mean, our viewers can get some tips from that.
Yeah. See, the vegetables that are chosen are locally grown. I normally go to a vendor. Normally, we call them in Hyderabad as Lambadis, right?
Okay, the nearby areas.
Nearby areas, they come and put their produce. I tend to buy only those produce which they get it, because mostly it's all grown in wild, right? And another advantage is they are locally grown. See, this concept of nutritious food, when we are talking, I told you, if a plant faces a stress, it gives a better nutritious yield, right? So the stress is different for different regions. So Ayurveda says, if you consume the food which is native and produced in that region, you are living in region, say right now Hyderabad, right? You should eat the food which is produced in and around Hyderabad. Getting a kiwi fruit produced in New Zealand and eating it and thinking that we are going to become healthy is only a misnomer, fallacy. Right? So we have to, because the reason is the plants are facing the stress even before we are facing. They are already fighting it. They are giving us a yield, right? And that yield will trigger the heat shock proteins in our body when we consume that, right? The small molecules, stress fighting molecules, and we become better prepared to fight the same stress.
Okay, so we are ready for it actually.
We are ready for it. So we will continue to remain healthy if we eat the food that is produced locally.
So your advice is, whatever is grown around your area, buy it, eat it.
Yes.
Rather than depending on all imported stuff coming from some exotic fruits from exotic countries. Dr. Anil, wonderful speaking to you. And I'm sure that in the next conversation which we have, we will do a deep dive into each of the aspects that we have spoken about, because let our readers, let our viewers get a grasp of what you spoke right now. Very interesting in terms of saying that we need to go back to our roots. The rooted wisdom is out there. and we need to ensure that we take up agricultural practices which actually give people a better chance, a better life at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And more importantly, better productivity for the farmers, and of course, a better income for them too.
And
Thank you very
finally, food security for our country.
So that's most important.
Yeah.
That is extremely important. We fed 4.6 billion people.
Yes.
We just need to feed 1.4 now. And we are doing it, but then there's a better way of doing it.
Yes.
Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you, sir.
Conversations.
Thank you for your time.
That was Dr. Anil Kumar, ladies and gentlemen, speaking about how Indian agriculture needs to go back to its roots, how it needs to discover itself, and more importantly, how to bring better efficiencies into the system and be natural. There's a lot that goes into your table as you eat for your night and for the day and for the rest of the life. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar. Jai Hind.